At my own birthday party, my girlfriend said, "I can't post this picture. You look poor next to me." I said, "Okay." Then I stood up, took the mic, and showed the whole party the before pictures of her I'd been saving. Before I paid for her car, her apartment, and her new face. Not exactly how I planned on spending my 32nd birthday, but here we are. First, some background. I grew up in a working-class family, busted my ass through engineering school on scholarships and part-time jobs, and founded my own tech company in 2017. The first 3 years were brutal. Ramen noodle diet, sleeping on friends' couches, the whole struggling entrepreneur cliché. But in late 2020, we developed a security software that caught the attention of some major clients, and suddenly money wasn't an issue anymore. We're not talking Bezos-level wealth, but enough that I don't have to check my bank account before buying something. I still drive a 2015 Honda and wear the same 5 graphic tees in rotation because honestly, I'm just not interested in flashy stuff. My parents raised me to value financial security over status symbols. I'd rather invest the money or have experiences than walk around with designer labels. I met Tiffany in early 2021 at a charity event. She was working for the nonprofit hosting it, coordinating donors and looking absolutely stunning while doing it. What drew me to her was how passionate she was about the children's education initiative they were fundraising for. She spoke eloquently about creating opportunities for kids from underprivileged backgrounds. It resonated with me since I'd been one of those kids who needed scholarships to make it through college. We hit it off immediately. She was beautiful, yes, but also seemed genuinely interested in my story and my company's mission. Our first few months together were amazing. We'd have deep conversations about everything from social inequality to the future of tech. She introduced me to art galleries and fancy restaurants. I showed her my favorite hole-in-the-wall places and got her into sci-fi movies. About 6 months in, around fall 2021, she mentioned she was struggling financially. The nonprofit job paid terribly, and she was thinking of leaving the sector altogether to make ends meet. I was heartbroken. Here was someone doing meaningful work she was passionate about, being forced out because of money. I offered to help with some of her expenses until the nonprofit's next funding cycle, when she was promised a raise. It started small, covering her car payment 1 month when she came up short, helping with rent when her roommate suddenly moved out, all with the understanding that this was temporary support to keep her in the job she loved. Then came the medical issue in spring 2022. She'd always been insecure about her nose, a result of breaking it as a teenager, and her health insurance wouldn't cover the corrective surgery since it was deemed cosmetic. She was in genuine physical discomfort, with breathing problems and frequent infections. Seeing her in pain, I offered to pay for the surgery. It wasn't even a hard decision. I had the means to help someone I cared about. By summer 2022, her nonprofit lost a major funding source and had to cut staff. Tiffany was devastated. She moved in with me while job hunting, and I helped her lease a more reliable car since her old one kept breaking down during interviews. The lease was in my name because her credit score wasn't great, and I could get a much better rate. Again, these weren't handouts in my mind. They were investments in our partnership. I could easily afford it, and it seemed like the right thing to do for someone I loved who was going through a rough patch. By early 2023, she'd found a new job at a marketing agency with better pay but less meaningful work. She decided she wanted her own space again, which I understood. We'd moved in together out of necessity rather than choice. I helped her find a nice apartment, and since the landlord required proof of income history she didn't have yet, I co-signed the lease. The arrangement was that I'd help with the rent until she was fully on her feet with the new job. Gradually, though, I started noticing changes. Tiffany began spending more time with a new friend group, all Instagram influencer types with seemingly unlimited shopping budgets. Her wardrobe transformed from simple professional attire to designer everything. She started talking about building her brand and became obsessed with social media presence. The passionate conversations about social causes dried up, replaced by discussions about follower counts and engagement metrics. At first, I attributed her new spending habits to her improved salary, but the math didn't add up. When I gently asked about it, she mentioned brand partnerships and influencer deals that provided free products. Later, I discovered she was also maxing out credit cards to maintain her new image. Still, I made excuses. She was going through a career transition, finding herself networking. Plus, after her surgery and style upgrade, she genuinely seemed happier and more confident. If my success could provide that for her, wasn't that a good thing? As our relationship evolved, so did an odd dynamic where she'd occasionally buy me expensive gifts. A watch here, a designer jacket there. Despite her own financial situation being precarious, I could tell these gifts were more about how they'd look on her social media. My amazing boyfriend in the Armani I surprised him with, than about what I'd actually want. My birthday rolled around last weekend, and Tiffany insisted on throwing me a big party at an upscale venue. I'm not one for being the center of attention, but she was so excited about planning it that I went along. She invited a mix of my actual friends and her new influencer crowd. The party was lavish, way more extravagant than anything I would have chosen for myself, but it was admittedly fun seeing my college roommates mingling with work colleagues and neighborhood friends. Tiffany was in her element, playing hostess and looking gorgeous in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. During dinner, someone suggested taking a group photo. We all gathered, and one of my old friends took several shots with my phone. When I checked them afterward, I thought they looked great. Everyone smiling, good lighting, a perfect memory of the night. I showed Tiffany, expecting her to ask me to send them to her. Instead, she frowned and swiped through them rapidly. "I can't post any of these," she said quietly. "Why not?" I asked. She hesitated, then leaned in and whispered, "Honestly, you look kind of poor next to me. Couldn't you have at least worn the Armani jacket I got you instead of that old blazer?" It's embarrassing. The blazer in question was my favorite, a well-made, comfortable piece I'd had for years. Nothing fancy, but certainly not shabby. More importantly, it was a gift from my parents when I landed my first engineering internship. It had sentimental value. Something inside me just snapped. 2 years of accumulated realizations crystallized in that instant. This wasn't the woman I'd fallen for. That woman had been a mirage, or maybe just a temporary phase of the person standing before me now. "Okay," I said calmly. Then I stood up. The venue had a small stage area where the 4-piece band had been playing earlier. I walked over, picked up the microphone, and tapped it to get everyone's attention. The room quieted. "Thanks everyone for coming tonight. Seeing all your faces in one room means more to me than you know." People raised their glasses, smiling expectantly. Tiffany looked confused but pleased, probably assuming I was about to make some loving acknowledgement of her party planning efforts. I want to share something with you all. A little before and after story. Earlier that day, I'd actually asked the venue about their AV setup for any potential speeches or toasts. They'd shown me how to connect to their system and had even tested my phone with it, so I knew it would work. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the venue's AV system. The large screen behind the stage lit up with a photo of Tiffany from when we first met. She was beautiful then too, but in a natural way, slightly crooked nose, sensible clothing, genuine smile. "This is the woman I fell in love with 2 years ago," I said, passionate about education reform, full of empathy and intelligence. I swiped to another, before, picture. Tiffany in jeans and a t-shirt at a volunteer event, painting a classroom at an underfunded school. This is the woman who spent weekends helping renovate schools in low-income areas because she believed every kid deserves a beautiful place to learn. Tiffany's expression had transformed from confusion to horror. She started walking toward the stage. I swiped again, showing her ancient Toyota with the bumper held on by duct tape. This was her car. Not pretty, but she was proud of it because she'd bought it herself with her nonprofit salary. Another swipe. Her small, somewhat shabby apartment with mismatched furniture. And her apartment with the roommate who was always late with rent, which meant Tiffany often covered for her because everyone deserves safe housing. By now, Tiffany had reached the edge of the stage, her face a mixture of fury and mortification. "And then came the changes," I continued. I showed a shot of her post-surgery, the designer clothes, the new car, the Instagram posts flaunting luxury goods, all captioned as if she'd earned them herself through some vague entrepreneurship that never quite materialized. Here's Tiffany now. Beautiful, stylish, living in a great apartment. And just now she told me she's embarrassed to be photographed with me because I look poor next to her. The room had gone completely silent. Even Tiffany seemed frozen. The irony is, I paid for all of it. The nose job she claimed was for medical reasons. $20,000. The car lease, $800 a month. The apartment, $2,400. The clothes, the shoes, the handbag she showcases on Instagram as if she's some self-made success story. All funded by the guy who apparently looks too poor to be in her photos. I put the microphone down for a moment, took a breath, and looked directly at her. I never minded supporting you, Tiffany. I minded that you became someone who could stand next to the man who provided all those things and be embarrassed by him. Because his clothes aren't expensive enough for your social media brand. The silence was deafening. Some people were staring at their plates, others were wide-eyed, looking between Tiffany and me. So this seems like a good time to announce that our relationship is over. The apartment lease we co-signed? I'll be giving the landlord the legally required 30 days notice that I'm removing myself as guarantor. The car lease in my name will need to be transferred to you or returned to the dealership within the same time frame. And this, I gestured around the room, is the last event I'll be financing. Happy birthday to me. I set down the microphone, walked off the stage, and headed for the exit. My closest friends immediately followed me, forming a protective huddle as we left. From behind, I could hear the murmurs turning into a full-blown commotion. Once outside, my college roommate Pete just shook his head and said, "Dude, that was both the most badass and most heartbreaking thing I've ever seen. Are you okay?" I wasn't, but I would be. Tiffany blew up my phone for the next 48 hours, alternating between tearful apologies, vicious accusations, and desperate bargaining. I blocked her number on day 3. Through mutual friends, I heard she'd posted a teary, My Truth video about how I had financially abused her by holding money over her head and then humiliating her publicly. The video didn't get the sympathy she'd hoped for, especially since several people who'd been at the party commented with their own accounts of what really happened. When I returned to my house after staying with a friend for a couple days, I found she'd moved most of her things out. She'd been splitting her time between my place and her apartment for months, gradually moving back to her own place as her career picked up, so there wasn't much to pack. Still, I changed the locks as a precaution and asked my lawyer to draft a formal letter outlining the financial separation timeline and process. It's been 2 weeks now. I've met with a lawyer to make sure all financial entanglements are properly severed. The apartment management company has been notified of my intent to remove myself from the lease, giving Tiffany the legally required 30 days to either qualify on her own or find a new guarantor. I've arranged with the car dealership to either transfer the lease to her name if she qualifies or return the vehicle after the same 30-day period. I've reset all my passwords and frozen my credit as a precaution. The emotional part is harder to clean up. I keep questioning how I missed so many red flags, how I convinced myself I was supporting her dreams when I was really just bankrolling her transformation into someone who ultimately looked down on me. The girl from that first photo, the one with the crooked nose and genuine passion for helping kids, I still miss her. But I'm starting to accept that she either never really existed or disappeared somewhere along the way. My friends have been incredible, especially the ones who knew me before I had money. They've reminded me that generosity isn't the problem here. It was just misplaced. They've crashed at my place, dragged me out for beers, and let me rant without judgment. I'm sharing this partly as a cautionary tale. Money does strange things to relationships. It doesn't automatically make you a simp or a doormat to support someone you love. But when that support becomes one-sided entitlement, when genuine appreciation transforms into embarrassment about being seen with you, that's when you need to walk away, no matter how much you've already invested. As a final note, the nonprofit where I met Tiffany does amazing work. I've set up a recurring donation in my company's name, anonymously. I still believe in their mission, even if my experience with one of their former employees went sideways. Some dreams are still worth investing in, even after you've been burned. Edit. Many people have reached out with questions and comments about this situation. Here are responses to the most common ones. Some folks are asking if I publicized her failings for revenge. Maybe partly, it was a spontaneous reaction to years of building resentment. Not proud of the public nature, but I stand by the content. The people at that party deserved to know who they were really dealing with. Others questioned why I'd support her financially in the first place. It wasn't about buying affection. Initially, it was helping someone passionate stay in a job that mattered but paid poorly. I've been fortunate enough to achieve financial security. Using some of that to support a partner's meaningful work felt right. The problem wasn't the support itself, it was how it changed her. On keeping receipts of her before pictures, I didn't have a revenge file saved up. Those were just normal photos in my phone from our early days. Everyone has pictures throughout their relationship. The contrast between then and now just became increasingly stark. A surprising number of people shared similar stories of partners who changed dramatically with increased access to money. It's unfortunately common, it seems. Several commenters asked about red flags I missed, which is fair. Looking back, she gradually stopped talking about the causes she once championed, started referring to her time at the nonprofit as slumming it, began making subtle digs about my clothing choices and car, talked differently when her influencer friends were around, showed more excitement about expensive gifts than experiences together. For those concerned about my financial security, I'm fine. These expenses were within my means. I'm not wealthy enough that the money doesn't matter at all, but this hasn't impacted my company or long-term plans. Finally, for everyone suggesting I date someone in my league financially next time, that's not the lesson here. Financial compatibility matters, but values matter more. I'd rather be with someone of modest means who appreciates genuine connection than someone wealthy who measures people by their brands. Edit 2, 4 months later, April 2024. Life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. About a month after my last update, I received an email from Christina, the executive director of the nonprofit where Tiffany used to work. She'd heard about what happened, small world, and reached out to make sure it wouldn't affect my company's donations to their programs. We met for coffee to discuss the organization's upcoming initiatives. Christina has been running the nonprofit for almost a decade, turning down lucrative corporate offers because she believes so strongly in their mission. She's smart, driven, and refreshingly straightforward. What was supposed to be a quick meeting turned into a 3-hour conversation about education reform, technology accessibility in underserved communities, and how businesses can create meaningful social impact beyond just writing checks. We've been dating for about 3 months now. It's completely different from my relationship with Tiffany. Christina is established in her own career, owns her modest condo, and has never once commented on my choice of vehicle or clothing. Our dates range from hiking trails to community events to quiet dinners at either of our places. When I offered to help fund a new program her organization couldn't otherwise afford, she insisted on formal documentation through the nonprofit's official channels. No blurring of personal and professional lines. As for Tiffany, she managed to qualify for the apartment lease on her own after getting a better-paying job in marketing. The car went back to the dealership. She couldn't qualify for the payments. I've heard through mutual connections that she's dating a minor reality TV personality now. Her Instagram is full of tropical vacations and designer hauls, though no one seems clear on how they're funded. I wish her well, but feel nothing but relief when I see those posts. The birthday blazer still hangs in my closet. I wore it on my first date with Christina, who complimented it without knowing its significance. When I told her the story later, she said something I'll never forget. The things that remind us where we came from are priceless. No designer label can compete with that. I don't know where this relationship is heading, but it feels built on something solid. We value the same things, respect each other's independence, and connect on a level that has nothing to do with material possessions. If there's a lesson in all this, maybe it's that the right person doesn't need to be upgraded or maintained. They just need to be appreciated for who they already are. For everyone who offered support during this whole saga, thank you. Those early days after the breakup were tougher than I let on, and knowing I wasn't alone in that experience helped more than you know. If my story prevents even one person from ignoring the red flags I missed, then something good has come from it.